Are you a teacher who's being non-renewed like I was? Or are you looking for a teaching position and you're just wondering about the interview? Well, I'm here to tell you how you can nail that teacher interview and make yourself the most competitive candidate possible. I will tell you, I've had some great interviews and I've had a couple really terrible ones. And I've had the opportunity to sit on both sides of the table. So I've learned so much about how to interview well and what a good interview looks like from the hiring perspective. I do want to start this video though with a caveat. This is what worked for me. And while I think these things will work well for most people, every interview is different. And the people around the table asking you the questions are the ones that matter. And often there are things that you just can't control. So keep that in mind. Sometimes it's not about you. It's about someone else that isn't even in the room. So first, when you're invited to interview, I would encourage you to ask a few basic questions. For example, is there anything that you need to bring? Anything specific that you should prepare in advance? Depending on the region of the country that you live in, oftentimes you'll be told no. But there are some regions of the country and some school districts that will require something like a teaching demonstration, or they'll want to see a teaching portfolio or copies of your teaching observations. Especially with a teaching demonstration, you're going to want to know some basics, like how long do you have? What's the target age range? What subject should you be teaching towards? Say you're going in for a history position. It's helpful to know if they want you to do a demonstration about a government concept. And while 99% of school districts will tell you that you need to prepare something like a teaching demonstration in advance, there's always going to be that one school district that won't, and you don't want to be caught off guard. I know I found this particular step helpful, as one of the schools that I interviewed with did this really specific and structured interview. And because I asked, I got warned ahead of time. It was kind of a super weird interview, but because I knew ahead of time that this was going to happen, I was a little bit more prepared and I didn't get so thrown off. The next step, I think, is really to research in advance of the interview. Most school districts will put a lot of their school policies online, and you'll be able to see in advance the most critical ones. So, what's the cell phone policy? What's the schedule like? How long would you get for a plan period? That way, then you can develop a set of thoughtful questions to ask. You can also do things like look up the names of the teachers in the department in which you're interviewing. You might find that you already know someone who works in that department. Or even if you don't, you might have a colleague in your current school or have a former mentor or supervising teacher that might know someone who works there, who can put a good word in for you. Next, and maybe this seems silly, pick out a great professional outfit that you feel confident and comfortable in. You don't want to be fussing with your shirt or dealing with a pair of shoes that really hurt your feet. And I know I've been there. That pair of shoes that looks really cute with that outfit that are not made for walking in. Yeah, I've worn those. And if you're someone who gets really anxious about interviewing, then practice in advance with a friend or partner. Just like we tell our students, practicing helps us get better at things. Once you've done a little prep work, then you're ready for your interview. Be sure to arrive on time, but don't come too early. Wait out in your car if you need to. And be nice and polite to every single person that you encounter. Oftentimes, office staff and people that you're interviewing with will be asked what you were like after you leave. Then remember, the interview is not just for the school to determine if they want to hire you. It's also for you to determine if you want to work for that school. So even though sometimes it's really difficult, try and relax and remember it's a two-way street. Plus, I found that if I could stay relaxed, it was easier to do things like make eye contact, smile, and ask good, thoughtful questions. The actual interview itself, you're likely to be asked everything from your classroom management philosophy to your teaching philosophy. And personally, I think it's really important that you have concrete, specific examples that you can offer, even if you haven't been in the classroom before. So, for example, if they ask you about a time when a student isn't following directions, then make sure you can provide a specific example of when you dealt with that situation in the past. If you haven't been in the classroom before, then think about when you've worked with children before and can provide an example. If you were non-renewed like me and you're asked, be honest and be honest about the reasons, even if it's hard. If you were non-renewed for budget reasons, then just simply state that. A lot of places non-renew for budget. They'll understand. And then it's okay to emphasize that the things that are appealing about the job. I know I did. I talked about how I thought working for a larger school would be great and how I really liked the schedule that the school kept. But I answered the questions about non-renewal without hesitation or shame. I definitely think the fact that I answered easily and honestly made it more of a non-issue for me. However, if you were non-renewed due to performance or even politics disguised as performance, as that sometimes happens, then use that time to talk about what you learned from the experience, what lessons you took away, whether that's you want to get better at classroom management. As someone who's interviewed candidates on the other side of the table, the last thing that you want to hear is a candidate who has an axe to grind with their previous employer or thinks that they were non-renewed due to some sort of witch hunt, whether or not that's true or not. So think of what you took away from that experience and what you would do differently next time. Keep in mind that most people who are part of the hiring staff want you to be a solid candidate. They want to like you. They want a number of good candidates to select from. Next, have questions about the school and the department. I would recommend coming prepared with at least 5 to 10 questions. I think some of them are likely to be answered in the interview as you're told more about the school, but not all of them will be answered. Asking questions demonstrates your just general enthusiasm for the position. You want to make sure that you're coming across as someone who wants to work in that building and with those people. Even if maybe you don't, you at least want to give that impression. You want to seem like you want to work with all of the people that you interview and interact with, not just some of them. And I know I have made that mistake in the past. I think it's easy to gravitate towards the people in the interview that you seem to click with. And I've made that mistake myself more than once. I spent time asking them questions and talking to them and not putting much effort into the other people in the room. And in retrospect, I think that made me look like I didn't care about everyone in the group. So learn from my mistake. Try and focus on everyone. The reality is, anytime you go into an interview, you never know if a school already has an internal candidate, how many other people have applied, if the principal has some sort of personal grudge against your alma mater. But by preparing, answering questions directly, and showing interest, you can make yourself a competitive candidate and provide yourself with the best chance for a job offer, so that in the end, you can select the job that works the best for you rather than having to settle for a job that you don't necessarily want. If this video has been helpful, then I hope you will like, comment, or maybe even subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. We'll be talking about if you should resign instead of allowing yourself to be non renewed. Bye.